third annual Healing City Summit. I am so thrilled to be your co-host today with my dear friend, Donna Bruce. Very, very, very pumped for the extraordinary lineup of folks that we have today. I hope folks got a chance to check out the videos that we're going to show throughout the summit of our friends from the Trauma Informed Care Task Force, who have been hard at work helping to heal trauma across our city. And as we see folks get on from all over the place, all over Baltimore, I would ask that you put your name, your gender pronouns, and what you do in the chat. Please also share our link on Facebook. I'm going to ask my team to put the link out there throughout the day. Definitely drop comments in the chat, tweet, Insta, do a TikTok, whatever it is you're into, do it. I want to lift up the people of Ukraine, including Ukrainians of African descent, and all people who are fighting back against authoritarianism right now. And before we get started, and again, please put your name, gender pronouns, and what you do in the chat. Please share the link that we're about to put up on Facebook. Before we get started, I wanted to give a huge shout out to our incredible Healing City coordinator, Kaye, and to the amazing Iris Showerman, without whose incredible contributions behind the scenes, this would not be possible. Please, please, please give them a big round of applause and emojis. Anne and Iris have really, really, really made this happen, as well as a bunch of other people. So the theme of this year's summit is hope and healing. And the reality is that this has been a very tough year. We've continued to lose our friends, family, and neighbors to gun violence and overdose deaths. We've lost so many lives to this horrific pandemic, and our mental health has been taxed in ways that were once unimaginable. And yet, there is truly a cause for hope in our city. The work that people have been doing across Baltimore to bring healing has been extraordinary. I am so proud of Baltimore for being the first city in the country to legislate trauma-informed care, and of the extraordinary work that has flowed from that legislation. I'm proud of our Healing City movement. I'm proud of all the people who are doing work across the city, uniting for a better Baltimore. And I'm proud of you, my friend, Donna Bruce. So Donna, tell us a little bit about yourself before we welcome our first very special guest.
Well, I first want to say hello, everyone, and welcome to Healing City Summit 2022. I was here at the beginning when we first started. It was just a vision, and now we're here. Just a little bit about myself. I am a person with lived experiences. I'm a certified peer recovery specialist. I am a registered peer supervisor, as well as a senior cosmetologist. I'm very active in the community with young people in recovery, more than a shop. As you see, I'm here in the library now, right? So we have peers in the library, and we're just doing great things at Healing City. And again, I'm super, super excited for this summer and all that the summit and all that's going to follow today. We have a lot of things lined up. I'm also on the Trauma Informed Care Task Force, as well as Healing City Baltimore Steering Committee. So my boots are to the ground, my heart is in it, and I'm here to serve my Baltimore City. Thanks for having me, Zeke.
You bet. Donna, real quick, before we turn to our first special guest, you mentioned the peers in the library. Could you just share a little bit about what that partnership is with our friends at Enoch Pratt and what you've been up to?
Perfect. So again, I'm here at Enoch Pratt. We're on Pennsylvania and North Avenue Library branch, where young people in recovery, the Maryland Peer Advisory Council, Tiffany Scott and Zeke, Cohen, you had an idea and you collaborated together, and I executed my portion by being here in the library. So here at the library, we give out resources such as these Narcan kits I have actually in front of me. In this kit is Narcan. We do Narcan training. We have the Terra packs in it. We provide resources and linkage to the community for mental health, substance abuse, housing. There are social workers here, but it's something when you have a person with lived experience such as myself to say, guess what? I've been where you are and we can get you to the next phase. So we provide those linkages in the community by providing those resources. And we give them a library card.
Awesome. It has been so good to have this partnership where we know overdose deaths are just a huge crisis in our city, and having Donna and other folks in there supporting through harm reduction, through Narcan, through hope, through healing, supporting people who are experiencing addiction has been enormous and just incredibly exciting. I'm now incredibly excited to introduce my friend and our mayor, Brandon Scott. And before we bring Mayor Scott up to the stage, I want to say this about him, which is that some folks who are in positions of power talk good words about equity and healing and trauma, right? That's what politicians have been trained to do. However, there is a real difference between those who talk the talk and those who walk the walk. Brandon Scott was the author and sponsor of Baltimore's equity, really groundbreaking equity legislation, which called for an assessment of every single city agency. Brandon Scott, as mayor, has done more to support the work of Healing City and trauma-informed care across Baltimore than any other mayor, I think, in the country. So this is someone who really leads with his heart, who doesn't just talk a good game, but who is out here doing the work. And with that, it is my profound honor to introduce my friend, our mayor, Brandon Scott.
Thank you, Councilman, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for welcoming me and welcome to the 2022 Healing City Summit. I want to thank you, Councilman, for always showing up for our communities in a very unique, dedicated, hands-on, and thoughtful way each and every day. And also, I want to acknowledge the incredible work that everybody that's involved in Healing City, Baltimore is and has been doing in our community. I want you to thank you all for enlightening us, inspiring us, bridging the gaps between us to help build a better Baltimore. And you all know better than anyone, and we're doing that by building a better Baltimore together. One of the most untold stories of the ongoing violence epidemic is the trauma our residents, especially our young people, experience and internalize on a daily basis. And healing that trauma is essential to our ongoing work to move our city forward and to reduce violence in the city. As our beloved Dr. Bunley has been preaching to us for many, many years, we know that not dealing with that trauma allows more violence to happen because, as he would simply say, hurt people hurt people. I will say that I am so proud of our youth, our students and young people for their involvement and participation in not just this week's event, but Healing City in general, and for taking on the great responsibility of not only addressing the trauma in their own lives, but aiding others throughout the city to do the same. Today's events and really this entire week are all about healing our community, which is made up of neighbors like you who may live in different areas of this great city, but share more similarities than differences. We all care deeply about Baltimore and its residents, and we are shepherds of Baltimore's future, all of us. I believe that where there is unity, there is strength, and that together we can do anything, which is why I'm so excited for us to experience the rest of this second annual week of healing, because mental health is just as vital in understanding ourselves as in others. The sessions, panels, all the activities that will take place this week touch on health and wellness in every aspect of life. And as you progress through the incredible lineup that is coming behind me and throughout the week, I want everyone to remember that the healing processes doesn't stop this week. We have to continually work towards wholeness and do that work towards wholeness and healing together. I also want everyone to share with others what you will learn about the importance of self-care, something that I personally practice all the time, healing from trauma and traumatic situations, the freedom of self-expression, holistic living, and so much more. And when we do that in a way so that we can continue to spread this message throughout our communities. I want to thank Healing City Baltimore again for helping us all work toward a better, brighter, and a more unified Baltimore. We know that this work will not happen overnight, but every single thing that you do, every step is critical for our city and the well-being of our residents. And I want you all to know that I see you and I appreciate you and I love you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our mayor,
Yeah,
Brandon Scott. Give it up for Mayor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Scott.
Indeed, truly a leader and a visionary in this work. And we appreciate your time today, but more importantly, your real investment in healing Baltimore. Again, for those that don't know, Mayor Scott put up a really significant amount of our American Rescue Plan Act money to support this work and has just been an absolute champion out front. So we appreciate you and we love you right back. All right, Donna, take it.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Mayor Scott, and thank you so much for investing in the Rex and Parks. You just did that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the next person. Dr. Dzirasa is an advocate in the community. She's a leader. She's a mom. She's a Delta for all you sorority people. She rocked that crimson and red. I did my homework on you, girl. Yes. Okay. So we're going to introduce Dr. Dzirasa. Of course, she's a public health. She's a pediatrician. And I'm going to introduce her at this point. Dr. Dzirasa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Donna. I had to raise my hand. I am actually not a Delta, though I highly respect Deltas. And certainly maybe you're prophesying something in the future. I don't know. But thank you so much, Donna, for that gracious introduction. I do want to just shout out and thank Councilman Cohen. So I've now been in this role. It'll be 3 years this month, which is unbelievable. So been in this role for 3 years this month, and from early on in my tenure, meeting Councilman Cohen back in March of 2019 when I started, he has been talking about trauma-informed care. So we've always been on the same wavelength around its importance for healing our city, for healing our children, for healing our students, and for just how we approach people. So appreciate his vision for this work. Got to, again, work very closely with him as we were developing this legislation. So really honored to be here to bring some welcoming remarks. So as Donna stated, my name is Dr. Laquisha Dzirasa. I am not a Delta yet, but I am also a mother, a pediatrician. I trained here in Baltimore City. I trained at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and I worked at Baltimore City. I worked in school-based health centers for a couple of years prior to coming into this role. And so trauma-informed care is very near and dear to my heart because I recognize its importance that we do have to, make sure that we're approaching each other with empathy, with compassion, and recognizing that we all are bringing our own perspectives and our own histories of trauma. And so, really appreciate this opportunity just to express gratitude to this community that has rallied around this important work and to welcome you to today's virtual events. The work achieved by everyone on this call is really inspiring. And so while this summit is only about 6 days, I know that the foundation and the groundwork laid during these meetings and these presentations are what is going to stimulate the lasting movement in the direction of healing for our city. Your presence here today demonstrates your commitment and your resolve to the advancement and success of the community around you. So you are that catalyst for change. You are healing here in practice. Events like today's summit and this week's summit really represent those collaborative conversations about the impact of art and data sets that set the stage for intervention. It talks about, again, just the joy that we all feel when we're doing this work. So these discussions that are happening are pushing us not only in the right direction, but in a very necessary direction. So I truly applaud everyone's commitment to this work and to healing our city through trauma-informed care. Again, these discussions are what spark change. So thank you, thank you, thank you for this opportunity just to bring a few words, but more importantly, thank you for your commitment to this work. Thank you for your commitment to the residents and the community that we all serve.
Thank you, Dzirasa. One, we're going to get Google, okay? Because you pull up Delta Sigma Theta and all you see is your face. And two, the chat is blown
Again,
up saying
you
that
could
they
be
love
prophesying
you.
something. You could, I will accept it. I will embrace it. But
yes, so you got some Deltas in the chat that says they love you. But thank you so much for those kind words and all the work you do here in the city of Baltimore. We appreciate you. We're going to turn it back over to Zeke at this point to carry on the rest of the summit.
Appreciate you. And I want to give my personal thanks to Commissioner Dzirasa as well. Just been an extraordinary partner. I remember way back when, during her confirmation, the commissioner said, you know, trauma-informed care, addressing trauma is really one of my top priorities. And that was the key for me. And she has completely kept her word despite a horrific global pandemic. Of which I want to just quickly say she did a phenomenal job of leading us through, and it was due to the leadership of Brandon Scott and Laquisha Dzirasa and so many other folks from our health department and all over our city that Baltimore, although we suffered and struggled like everybody else, did really well when you look at comparably sized cities at preventing transmission and deaths due to COVID-19. So again, want to just recognize her leadership as a phenomenal health commissioner and as someone who really shepherded us through a just unbelievably difficult time. It is now my great honor to bring up another real leader in our city who comes to us both from academia. She's a professor at Loyola and she runs the Carsonia Institute, which is doing phenomenal work on racial justice and healing, as well as through the media. Folks know her as Dr. Kaye. She is always up on everything Baltimore related. She keeps us safe. She keeps us sane. Her show is absolutely phenomenal. So I am pumped to bring up Dr. Kaye, who is going to introduce our first panel for today. And again, if folks can share the link, get hyped. This is the 3rd annual Healing City Summit 2022. Dr. Kaye, we are pumped to have you here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Councilman Cohen. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much, Mayor Brandon Scott. Thank you to Dr. Laquisha Dzirasa. I will say, Donna, that when you said Delta Sigma Theta, I was down writing, but as a Delta, immediately my head went up because that's what we've been taught to do, right? My head went up at the mention. But yes, Sister Dzirasa, we welcome you one day into the fold of Delta Sigma Theta, which is also a great moment for me to wish a happy Black Women's History Month to everybody out here as we continue to struggle forward and be involved in this very important work around trauma-informed care. I have watched from the sidelines. I have worked to engage. I've thought deeply about this. So to join you in conversation today is both an honor and a privilege. As Zeke Cohen said, of course, I am the host of Today with Dr. Kaye, which I'm just going to assume everybody's listening to from 2 to 4 on WEAA. But I'm also, I guess, in my day job, the founding director of the Carson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice on the campus of Loyola University, Maryland. And today, I'm very excited to announce today at 5 p.m., I am hosting for a conversation about social justice and peace, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya and his wife, Dr. William and Rachel Ruto. So to be able to invite in the Vice President of Kenya so the students can see a Black man in a position of power in a major country is just an exciting piece of work. And you're all invited to join us on campus tonight at 5 p.m. I want to give each of our panelists an opportunity to talk about themselves. We'll have about a minute and a half or so to 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about who you are and frame how you come into the conversation. Starting with Aaron Maybin. Thank you so much for donating a book to the fundraiser with Charles Robinson last week, Aaron. Activist, artist, former NFL player, and someone who has a deep love for Baltimore City and expresses that in ways through his art and his writing. Aaron?
How you doing? Thank you for having me. Honored to be here. Thank you to everybody that had a role in putting this event together. And to introduce myself very quickly, as Dr. Kaye just said, I am an artist, I am an author, I am an educator, I'm a former NFL player, but more importantly than anything, I'm a son of the city of Baltimore. And, you know, I could say a lot about the different hats that I wear and the different things that I do, but at the end of the day, my whole purpose is about providing an example of what it looks like for all of us to get involved in being part of the changes that we want to see around our city. I choose to focus on education, community outreach, and the arts, you know, as my vehicles for change. But I think that far too many times we tend to put the people that do this work up on pedestals and celebrate them as individuals, as if they're doing some, you know, great esoteric work that's just reserved for the privileged few. But the work that I'm doing and the work that so many people that you'll hear from during this summit are doing is work that we all need to be involved in. We all need to see it as our own personal responsibility. And we all need to see that further in all of our individual communities to end up transforming our city in the way that we want to see it transformed. So I'm proud to be a part of the fight, and I look forward to sharing ideas with all of you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Monica Vasquez, Executive Director of Central Soul. I'd like to pass it to her next. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. It is really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here and share this panel with amazing human beings who are doing so much for our community. My name is Monica Guerrero Vasquez. I'm an immigrant. I'm originally from Ecuador. My background, I've done a lot of things, but really migration defined my life and who I am and my identity. But professionally, I have a background in computer science. I've worked in international cooperation for the United Nations, and currently I am the Executive Director of Centro Sol, the Center for Health and Opportunities for Latinos. And as a Latin American, it is really important for me to work with the immigrant Latino community here in Baltimore City and at the state level, and really make an impact and influence about what happens at in the country in terms of how we engage and integrate and work together in the communities. So really honored to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Monica. We definitely appreciate you. We have T. Scott with us, Maryland Peer Advisory Council and Young People in Recovery Chapter Lead for Baltimore. T, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm really excited about Healing City, Baltimore. I am born and raised in Baltimore City, and just looking forward to this week-long event. I'm the founder of the Merlin Peer Advisory Council, who is a peer-led organization driven on recovery-based solutions here in Baltimore City. We provide training and resources to include outreach, and that prompted me to get involved with young people in recovery. And as the chapter lead for young people in recovery, we're doing non-traditional outreach. Right now, you see Donna in the library. That's one of the initiatives that we started in collaboration with Healing City and Enoch. We also provide opiate outreach to barbershops, hair salons, nail salons with more than a shop, and to include training for anyone who is interested in learning about overdose response. It is my pleasure to join each and every one of you today. I'm excited and looking forward to see you in all aspects of Healing City. I'm a part of the steering committee and have been here for the past 3 years. So I look forward to, again, seeing each and every one of you. And I thank you for having me as a part of this panel.
Thank you, T. And last but certainly not least, Laquisha Hall, Baltimore City Bcpss Teacher of the Year 2018. Teachers are close to my heart as a former middle school teacher. How are you, Laquisha?
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me today. I am absolutely thrilled to be in this space with so many great leaders in Baltimore City. Like you shared, thank you so much, Dr. Kaye, and thank you to Zeke and the Healing City Summit panel and committee for inviting me. I think it's important to have people who are working directly with youth as voices for how to engage and work with them. And so I have over 1,700 kids that I will never let go of in my life that I have taught in this district. This is my 19th year. I currently serve in the role as a coach, but I am 100% committed to the work that needs to happen in Baltimore City schools and for our youth. I am a proud employee of Baltimore City Public Schools, so you will not get from me the banter that we often hear from the media, because it's important that we stand behind the people who are standing in front of our kids. And so I'm here to be a voice for educators, for our district, and also just grateful to be a part of Baltimore, because as you might be able to hear, I'm not from here, I am from the South. And so I have a very, very country twang, and I'm excited to be here in March, Women's History Month, as well as my birthday month. Tomorrow I will be 41. And so I'm just honored to share this space with you all today.
Thank you so much, Laquisha. I'm also from the South. I've been working with my Southern twang. It only comes out every now and then. To get into the conversation and to invite people who are watching, put your questions into your chat, and I will definitely work them into our discussion, put them in the Q&A, and we'll talk for about 31 minutes or so. We're going to end exactly at 1 o'clock. So I'll start with you, Monica. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that the Latino community is facing over the last few years, and why is this work so important? And then Aaron, I'm going to come to you and talk about the ways we can lean in as artists of all ways into these very difficult situations. Monica?
Yes, thank you so much. I think one of the major complexities in serving the Latino community is that we are labeling a community that is very complex and very diverse in nature with one word, and we say Latinos, and we think that that encompasses and covers all the cultures and traditions. And I think starting from that basis, we can imagine like not recognizing these cultures and the diversity of the community is definitely challenging in how we provide services, because oftentimes we think it may be, institutionally, we may think that it's one size fits all. And when it comes to delivering services, we encounter that the challenges are more complex and more difficult than we think. But before going into the challenges, I would like to highlight this diversity and richness in cultures and identities in our Latino communities and the assets that they bring to the city. Latinos in Baltimore City and the state, as you know, the state of Maryland is one of the 5th most diverse states in the country. Yay. And that means that brings a lot of assets, that brings richness to our landscape in everything we do, but it also brings challenges too, right? And how we're gonna, how prepared are we to serve the needs of our communities? So in terms of mental health for Latinos and thinking about this diversity and complexities of our communities, It is that Baltimore City has experienced a tremendous growth in the Latino immigrant community. You probably are familiar with the most recent census. We saw an increase of more than 75% in the city, more than 70% in the county, and certainly more than 50% in the entire state. So that means that the growth of the population has been really, really fast, and institutionally we have not been able to get ready and prepared. So there's a lack of bilingual providers, a lack of services that are culturally and linguistically appropriate. We don't have enough interpreters. We don't have enough services in different languages. And going back to the diversity too, Latinos speak more languages in addition to Spanish. And there are many indigenous individuals here in our city who don't speak Spanish well. So even assuming that just, translating everything to Spanish is going to provide services to everyone, leaves many people behind. The migration process is very traumatic itself, years before individuals decide to, leave or flee the country. Many residents in Baltimore City come from Central American countries and Mexico, and they flee horrendous violent situations, many of them gang violence, many youth who come unaccompanied because they are being targeted by gangs. So before they come here, they already go through a lot of traumatic experiences. The journey may be very traumatic for all of them, and there are different ways that they can get here. And finally, immigration is in itself a very traumatic experience, especially when you're getting to a new culture, a new community, and the mindset of migrants is, all I'm gonna do is work. And then we forget, and it's like we hide the traumatic experiences and we don't have time to heal ourselves. And that accumulates and perpetuates the marginalization, the traumatic experiences that they go through, and that passes through their generation. So we're seeing, for example, that US-born children experience a lot of stress because they're US-born, they receive benefits, but their parents cannot navigate the system they're living in. The parents don't understand or know what mental health treatment could be. And then we have the COVID-19 pandemic, which came to exacerbate the marginalization of communities of color in our country, in our city. So this is not new to any of us. We have been really building the plane as we go, I think, and we have learning as we go in the process. We were not ready to respond to a pandemic, and the isolation, in addition to the individual isolation, community isolation of communities of color and marginalized communities, with the pandemic, we saw that getting even worse. So families not being able to isolate, many were essential workers, so they couldn't stay home, even though, they probably wished to do that, but they couldn't. And the very thin stability they may had, very weak stability they may had, they lost it during the pandemic. So they lost their houses. Rent has been a huge hit in our communities. They lost their jobs, and they lost many lives. The immigrant communities, as you know, Latinos and African-American communities were hit really, really hard by COVID-19. So that is, if you try to draw a pyramid of traumatic experiences, that is going really, really high. And the importance of this work is recognizing that there is an issue, recognizing and identifying our communities as diverse, and trying to promote equitable actions and policies to address the needs of everyone in our city, in our state, and our country. So working on the trauma, I'm a member of the Trauma Informed Care Task Force too, and it is a very refreshing environment where we have the opportunity to talk about what are the challenges that we may face by proposing these solutions, because it's not going to take a year, it's not going to take a workshop, and it's not going to take, it takes everybody working together and putting resources in place to make sure that we address the needs. This is a lot of ideas and thoughts in a nutshell,
No, but I'm glad.
happy to talk more.
Well, you're glad I'm opening up the space in terms of just kind of getting into this, because I want to go to Aaron to talk about the ways in which art can lean in as a way to support us, as a way to nurture us. And then once we hear from Aaron, Monica, T, I want to come to you because I really want to get into recovery and the impact that COVID has had on the young people in recovery, on that community, and then what it's calling on us to do. So I'll go to Aaron first.
So you want the arts impact on our psyche, on our recovery, on our healing, our education. It's a free.
No, I do. I like where you're going with that. I would like you to do both. So I'd like you to talk about the impact, but how can art be used?
I'll handle it blow by blow then. Historically, as a people of African descent, art has always been our vehicle and our tool to articulate our lived experiences, not just here, but anything that we were able to preserve through slavery as relics of our past, of our legacy, of our history. It was done through the arts. It was done through music. It was done through sound. It was done through song. It was done through visual arts. It was done through poetry. We are the people of Guerrero, of the Guerrero. You know, so the way that we tell stories, the way that we narrate our lived experiences, the way that we create sound and music and dance, it's a part not just of our history, but it's a part of our collective existence. When you think about it through that lens, you understand just how powerful the arts are, not just as a tool for self-expression, but as a revolutionary tool for our liberation. I don't think that you can look to any moment in Black American history or in history in general where the arts weren't used as a weapon to wage war on our behalf. You know, whether you take it all the way back to the days of slavery, where they would have hidden codes embedded in the spirituals that they would sing. You know, the way that we would weave quilts with different artistic influences that would tell slaves how they could make their way to freedom. The poetry that was written by Phyllis Wheatley and Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and so many others. Like the art is who we are, and not just a representation of who we are, but a window into our lived experiences for the outside world. So when you talk about creating empathy, when you talk about creating understanding, when you talk about humanizing a people that have been systematically dehumanized for generations and generations, the art plays a paramount role in that. And I think that it's evident how large a role it plays when you look at how Black arts and culture literally moves society, moves the world. We set the trends, we create the waves, we make things cool. You know what I mean? And all of those things translate also into how we educate, or at least they should, which is why I've always been an advocate for arts-based education and arts-related practices being available to our schools, especially our students in low-income communities and marginalized communities and historically disenfranchised and oppressed communities, because they're the ones that need to be the biggest beneficiaries of it. In my personal life, I grew up in West Baltimore, and the arts for me at a very young age became my preferred language method of choice. And that actually heightened after the death of my mother. And being a 6-year-old that loses, you know, a parent that early in life, it's very traumatizing, and it has a lifelong impact on the way that you go about internalizing relationships, trauma, depression, and everything else. The art for me was not just an escape, but a tool and a mechanism for me to first find my way towards healing. It was my first introduction to therapy. It was my first introduction to trauma-informed care. Even though I didn't know the names, the clinical names at that point in time, I found a home, I found peace. And that was something that I wasn't able to get from anything else, not as an athlete, you know, not as a student, not as just a Black boy growing up in the city. We didn't really have a lot of spaces that were created to nurture that element of our youth when I was coming up. But I was fortunate to have parents that recognized my skill, my aptitude, and sacrifice to make sure that they found outlets to include me in and get me that education. And thankfully, when you look, you know, 30 plus years later, you know, I'm you know, an artist that's traveled all over the world exhibiting my work. You know, I've created curriculums that are not just being taught in elementary and middle schools, but in high schools and colleges across the country. So that doesn't happen if that investment wasn't made in my personal life. So when I decided to transition from the NFL to doing the work that I'm doing now full time, I realized the necessity of the arts in education. And I decided that that was going to be my primary focus, because a lot of times we look to cut branches off of rotten branches off of a tree, rather than understanding that the roots of the tree are toxic and that we need to do things from the ground up. And I see the arts as one of the simplest ways that we can go about trying to connect them and build bridges and restore a lot of what's been broken in our communities and our youth and in ourselves. So I started off doing my art therapy workshops in the youth prison system and in the education system before I became an educator. And then during my years as an educator, it was very well documented all the different things that we were able to get accomplished in the Sandtown community when I was there. But now, with me being in the position with former athlete Torrey Smith, we've opened up this rec center that I'm sitting in now on the west side, and we're using this as our home base to really do a lot of the different arts-based initiatives that I was able to start in the school system. It's a beautiful thing to be in a position where nobody else has control over telling you what you can and can't do. There's a certain freedom that I wasn't going to be able to get as an educator in the school system, that in this rec center based model, I'm able to really go above and beyond and engage in ways that you can't necessarily do in the school building. So long story short, I see arts as being the glue that ties all of these things together. You know, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about history, whether you're talking about narrative, whether you're talking about healing, whether you're talking about sustainability in the future and what we need to do in order to become sustainable as a community. So I just want to do everything I can to use my platform and my resources to make sure that this next generation of kids coming up behind us have the tools, the resources, and the outlets to keep this Black Renaissance that we've created here in Baltimore going.
Aaron, I'm so excited to hear you speak before myself, because you speak of art, and that's one of the beautiful things about recovery. As peer recovery coaches, we learn the art and science of recovery. The art is more so our lived experiences and how we're able to break barriers and to assist individuals to discover their own strengths and their own talents and their own wants and needs. The science behind it is learning about active addiction, substance use, harm reduction, prevention, and recovery, right? And how do we help individuals navigate their process so they can be self-sustainable? I think the key of that is having hope, understanding that hope is there. As long as hope is there, we can do great work. You know, I am a person who has been impacted from a family member perspective, such as yourself. I'm very sorry for your loss of your mother. I live today advocating for others, specifically families, and connecting myself to community, because I understand that we may be well-versed in recovery and know the language of recovery, but there's a lot of stigma that still is there. And through recovery coaching, through peers, individuals with lived experience, to include family members, we are able to create and break barriers to promote healing, to create access to services and resources. And that's what really drove me to young people in recovery. During COVID, there was this silence in a reduction of services where it's just like the world stopped. But our people still needed things. They still needed resources. They still needed access. And I felt like we were working underground. And I found this organization, which was national, and I noticed that it didn't have a Baltimore chapter. Well, Baltimore is the largest region in the state of Maryland. We're huge, you know, and our young people desired services, the true resources and tools they needed to access and grow. They needed safe and brave spaces where they can talk about things that impacted them on a daily basis. They needed to know that recovery was possible. They needed their family members to understand some things as well. So that's what really built out the Young People in Recovery chapter, because we understood there was a space. You know, we talk about creating treatment and resources for individuals, but our young people need so much more. It's not just treatment. It's not just housing. People believe recovery is treatment, and that's not true. They need so much more. They need spaces where you can engage and have real conversations, and they need connections to support. So that is our goal through both Impact and Young People in Recovery, to do what's not normal, to go in places that people don't go into, to reach people in the most non-traditional spaces and places possible, to use platforms like this virtual space to reach people, even in the comforts of their own home. You'll be surprised how young people will jump on a call, you know, just to be present in the space, you know, to identify recovery as multiple pathways, to know that they're recovering for not just substances, you know, for their trauma, for incarceration, for anything, even eating as an eating disorder. Our young people need to understand, and our loved ones and family members, faith-based and community members, need to know that recovery is possible. There are thousands of people thriving today in recovery. We talk about overdose response. We talk about the loss of lives. We talk about gun violence, but people are too thriving in recovery. And we do that, and we try to continue to lift up that space and let people know that recovery is possible, healing is possible, but we need you. We need people like yourself here and present and accountable and being resourceful. We can't do it on our own. So I'm very excited about being here for Healing City, Baltimore. I get excited every time we talk about it because it's a week long of just action, and I love it. So we want to continue to carry that torch for all 365 days of the year. Let me Healing City every day. So that is my piece. And I love the art and the work that you're doing, and everyone here. Thank you, Monica, for sharing your information and resources as well, because that's a space that we need to do more work in. There's cultural barriers that's, you know, people are afraid to reach out and ask for help. Know that we are here to do that. We have peers in the library on Tuesdays from 12 to 3. Our doors are open to anyone in need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tia. I appreciate that. I want to go to Ms. Hall next because I want to talk about the impact of this on education. I really do think about teachers being on the front line to not only recognize when trauma is happening at home, but to be a safe and healing space. So if you could talk about that, and then I would turn it over to Councilman Zeke Cohen, who's going to just moderate the conversation from here, but really open it up for other people to join in and ask their questions. Thank you so much, Councilman Cohen. Ms. Hall, thank you for your service, and I'll pass it to you.
Thank you so much for allowing this space. And in hearing everyone that spoke before me, there are so many connections I can make to all that has been shared. Especially Aaron with the art. I was a literacy teacher who embedded the arts in my regular teaching practices and strategies. And my scholars at that time, high school, by the way, thrived off of the opportunities to be creative, and a lot of times express way more than they could have in writing an essay or whatever was required by curriculum. And then also, you know, Ms. Scott, I really appreciate you sharing about the different ways we had to look into how we approach the healing process of trauma, because there are so many different avenues and not one works for all. And there can be a variety of ways that even one person can try in order to reach their destination in their journey. And so as far as education is concerned, I think it's important for us to just be aware of all that is being offered in Baltimore, all of the different strategies that we can employ in the classroom that can support our young people in moving forward. And right now is a very difficult time in education for educators as they're teaching in the midst of a pandemic. They're teaching in ways that they hadn't had to teach before in the past through the computer, and then now back in person, and we don't know how that might shift in the future. And so making connections with our young people is very important, because how easy it is to become disconnected when it's just your name showing up on a computer screen, right? How easy it is to become disconnected if you're experiencing trauma, you don't know how to move forward, and you don't know who to talk to or what to do in order to start your own healing process. I'm so happy to hear about Aaron starting at age 6 with his art and using that as a vehicle to drive him to a place of healing. I too, in my youth, had to use art. I also am an artist, a journaler, and all those different things that are creative. I use that in my own space to recover from domestic violence happening between my parents at home, as well as sexual abuse that started in my life when I was a high school student. But what other people saw on the outside was a student who got honor roll, who was doing well. They had no idea what I was experiencing at home, or what to even approach me to talk about, right? And so I have learned over the years that when you are perceptive, when you embed a lot of different strategies, and when you make and build those connections with young people, when they feel that you're a safe space, when they know that you care, they can come to you about more than assignments. And I personally feel, I cannot speak for all teachers, that is our role in the classroom. We're not there to save them. We're not there to be another parent, but we are there to teach them. They are still in a learning space as a young person, and our lessons extend far beyond what is in the curriculum. We're teaching them how to navigate the world, how to navigate life, how to navigate social life within a culture or a climate, like a school body. And so I think it's important, because we want to be seen and heard. Adults know what that feels like. I mean, we're out here fighting for our lives, fighting to be seen and heard, be humanized, especially in the African-American community right now. And I think with the way that we feel, imagine how much more that could be exacerbated for a young person who might feel that their voice is silenced because they are not an adult yet, or no one cares about what they think because they don't have the same experiences that we have. In education, we have to empower our young people to know that their voice matters, how to use their voices effectively. We have to encourage them in the space that they are in. So if it's art, if it's writing, if it's singing, and God forbid someone try to tear them down for wanting to be a rapper or a football player or a basketball player, our job is to nurture, encourage, and cultivate what it is already inside them, so that as they continue to grow and build and turn into adults who will then leave Baltimore, they can not only overcome their own trauma, but be those leaders that help others come out of their trauma as well. And I think with the type of work that everyone on the panel is doing, that's possible. I also think it's important for us to note that the stereotypes, not only behind the stigma of mental health, but the stigma behind being a young Black person in Baltimore has to be eradicated. We have to see our young people as constituents of change, as change makers, as future leaders. And when we're in spaces, or when we're looking at spaces where our young people are called criminals, animals, torn down, looked down on because they're a special education student, and all those different things that they are ridiculed for, we need to be the ones that stand in that space and say, that's not okay. This is a leader, and we are here to cultivate what's next for them.
Hey, big snaps. This is why I love Mrs. Hall so much, for the work that she does, and just for constantly shining the bright, positive light on young people in Baltimore. And I completely agree that too often the image is incredibly negative and just isn't true or real. So I appreciate you. So this is going to be a lightning round, and anyone who wants to jump in, I'm going to ask you to keep it to 45 seconds or less. But this is an extraordinary panel of people. You all are doing great work in your own space. Let me ask you this, 45 seconds or less, and you're going to be on the clock. Where do you find hope and healing? Anyone who wants to jump in first?
I find it in our people. At the end of the day, that's all you should really need to feel hopeful. I think that when you look at the outside circumstances, it can get easy to get overwhelmed and have a deficit-based mindset. But when you look at the fact that no matter how bad things have gotten, whether you look at crime, whether you look at education, whether you look at the lack of resources and all of that, we're still here. We continue to overcome that. None of these things, systemic or otherwise, have been able to break or destroy us as a people and as a community. And regardless of how hard and how impossible it seems at times, our ancestors have gotten us to this point. So we don't have the luxury of complaining about how bad it is. We just have to figure out what needs to be done.
Love that response. Anyone else want to jump in?
I don't want to repeat the same thing that Aaron said, but it's definitely in our people. Our people build power. We just have to connect to the source. So as long as there are available resources, sometimes we build our internal resources, tools and resources that we already have and possess in our minds and our bodies and in our spirit. And then we use our voices to create change. So it's definitely, I would concur and say, it's in the people.
When I think about hope, I think about the future, Zeke. And so I have to say that I find hope in the minds of our young people and in the visions of our leaders embedded in our communities. That's important to note as well. Those spaces and places that we might drive by or see where we think there's no hope, that's where it's going to come from, I believe. And I also think there's healing and communication partnership and support of key stakeholders in Baltimore. A house divided cannot stand. We got to stand behind the people who are leading the work.
Appreciate that. Monica, you want to jump in?
Yes, I echo everyone. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will add, I see the power of healing in representation with people having seats in decision-making processes, having people from our communities leading efforts, leading healing efforts like Aaron, like Ms. Hall, like Tiffany, having them representing the community. That's what healing does, because you can see beyond and you can bring hope and resilience to individuals, to communities, to societies, to the entire country. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, let me just thank every single one of you, both for your commitment today and really every day in our city. Laquisha Hall, Aaron Maybin, Monica Guerrero Vasquez, Tiffany Scott, truly folks that are not just saying the words, but doing the work in our community. And we really need, like Ms. Hall said, to shine a bright light on those spaces that we drive by that we don't seem to have the collective capacity to care for. This is about all of us, is about all of our young people in this city. And I just sincerely want to thank you all for being here with us today. With that, it is exactly 1 o'clock. So thank you also for being pithy. And I'm going to turn it back to my co-host, Donna Bruce.
Wow, guys, that was amazing. I want to thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Did I mention it's going to be 140 panelists and attendees to this summit? Okay, I didn't, but it's going to be a lot going on. So right now we have Miss Anitra Blue. And I'm honored to say that she is a friend of mine. She was born and raised in Northwest community of Baltimore City. She spent her early life plagued with a quite a few bit of challenges that propelled her to seek solace in music. Through the therapeutic value she contained in the lyrics, it had such a profound effect on her that she pondered what would happen if she tried a similar form of expression. From there, she began experimenting with putting ideas together, emotions, experiences on paper, and we're excited to hear from her today. Miss Anitra Blue, we now turn the floor over to you. Hey girl, hey. Yes. So we're gonna turn it over to Miss Anitra Blue.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here and just be a part of this. I'm very honored and I feel privileged to be able to share in this journey with you guys. So I chose a piece called 2022, A Year Anew. Past 2 years, no choice in spending loads of time with self. A space to sit back and reflect on shuffled hands they dealt. A slow decline alluding to a short improving health. No job, no car, no house, relying on depleted wealth. Paralyzed with fear, perhaps my sanity may melt. Glare and stare, I swear it's there, my bare symbolic life shelf. Stop and just imagine, can you, how I must have felt, especially in that setting, impossible reaching out for help. Just was an ordinary day when I flipped on the news station, reports this strange new virus that required isolation. Oh my goodness, what is happening to our great, strong nation? Then I come to find the US ain't the sole location. Now I'm slowly listening and it's daily brand new information. Seems they're discovering dangerous mutations. Cause to sift through my priorities, fast track of rotation. Psyche starts to raging, pure confused frustration. Someone please just fill me in. What are we now facing? Months roll by, grab brief glimpses, shaking my head, a look-see. At least in my mindset, it seemed to me it had to be. That smiling faces on my loved ones, friends, and family. And what more, they all seemed to me a distant memory. The fear, concern, and sad expressions, nothing but worry. The sense of touch and loving someone unconditionally. I agree, most likely it really wasn't unintentionally, but certainties that stem from COVID-19 quarantine made quiet, comforting words we held so dear, like us and we, convert to solo pronouns, such as I and me. It's this vocabulary type that made us feel lonely and not an inkling of permission ever sought from me. AIDS and cancer focus, wow, now back burner pass by the unexpected show of this mad corona grass. Pervade the globe, bringing blues with all its rock and jazz, thrashing past a blasted path of death tolls in the masses, tossed in turmoil quick, so bad, unbelievably fast. The remedies are hassle wearing mandatory masks, social distance vast, hair cough conclusions rash, advertisements all you see urge people to get vaxxed, making duties of these wacky uninvited tasks like handing someone sanitizer they ain't even asked. Now everyone is walking around and they're in such a huff. Violence, crime, protest, crazy rowdiness, a must. Some will seek a noun escape and find it in a puff. Somebody out there mucked this up, and another one is cutting up, still clueless as to who on earth initially released this stuff. Police reputation, brutal, aggressive, brutal, rough. Citizens are careless when they tough or strapping up. Taken aback with all this crap, I said, you know what? No more whispers, sugarcoating, furry, fluffy, bluff. Direct, point blank, period. It's time to call my bluff. Emotions of fire, I'm sick and tired. Good grief, enough's enough. My grandma paced the floor while saying, what a crying shame. Shucks life even harder on most days now to explain. Church folks pray, persuade it all away in their God's name. But when it comes down to it, man, we all just want the same, because we all just hate the pain. Even all the stars with all their possessions, fortune, and fame state the value of its lane in the grand big scheme of things. Emotional stability has oozed right down the drain. 2022 come through, we stand, applaud, and welcome you, anticipating times ahead, foreign, brand, and new. Our world could use a shift, so let's prepare to move. Starting on the other side, long ways overdue. Assume to fuel a celebration, singing brand new tunes, ringing bells and blowing whistles, sounds of ahs and oohs. 2022 can soar us straight right past the moon. Don't worry, there's plenty space for all. There's lots of room. For those who care to join me, why don't you come and follow, boo? But it leaves the terminal soon, so I suggest you come real soon. Woohoo, here, here. Excuse me. Woohoo, here, here. Let's drop the tears. 2022, our year to cheer. Mistakes can be taken, packed in arrears. No, I think it should be in the rearview mirror. Just the fact that we are here, hopefully the virus will disappear. Once again, my friend and dear, let's shout it from our voices to the universe's ear. Don't be worried, posted vacancies for all my peers. This heightened state of discord, I've become keenly aware. Even as I speak, COVID-19 wasn't fair. Now the charge is set in, do we all get stuck right there? Well, I propose and suppose we just go and fully prepare for interest bigger, higher than that virus in the air. If anybody cares, I come presenting now a dare that we expedite the journey called our climb from here to there. As one or a pair, from average bear to mayor. 2 years caged and limits sure has built up strong layers. There's no one's impact won't be needed. Useful, helpful, shared. Revitalize, restore, rebuild. Today, I declare it. In closing, I'm sure that we all can fully agree. Potential, action, strength combines a heck of a great team. Who take the reins and lead? Will you leave it up to me? Just so you know, it only grows if done collectively. The drive and thrive of 22 can bust right out the seams. Like Martin Luther's dream, let's write a page in history. With fortitude, conviction, tap into tenacity. It's not hard as it seems. We're not reaching out our league. Let's show them all we're great and strong in Baltimore City. Thank you.
Hey, that was phenomenal. Thank you so much. Anitra Blue, please, please, please give a big round of emojis and applause and everything else to Ms. Blue. That was excellent. Thank you for joining us here at the Healing City Summit. We truly appreciate you. And now it is my great honor to introduce our next guest poet. Caroline Knight is a student in the 12th grade at Bryn Mawr School in Baltimore. Through her expressive poetry, she aims to paint distinctive images in the minds of her readers, blending those images of the world we live in today with the new world she envisions. I gotta say, I've heard Caroline read poetry before. She is absolutely phenomenal. And so it is a great honor to have you here at our 2022 Healing City Summit. Caroline, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cohen. Hello, everyone. I will be reciting an original poem I wrote entitled The Unproven Theory of Evolution. And I sort of wrote this to describe some flaws that I see depicted in the theory of evolution, how it doesn't necessarily encompass all the human values that I find important. As clearly stated in Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, all life is inclusive of physical replications and modifications, entities succeeding our predecessors, breathing in our lungs. The knowledge of 1,000 native tongues that walk the earth before us, a transcending of customs, traditions, genetic code, and logistics. But oh, so suddenly, transgenetic mutations, virus permeations enter the cell. And so the creation of a unique bipedal species excels beyond any other animal living on this planet. From the biosphere to blue paint, to Bluetooth, our knowledge as humans has expanded. This earth has continuously spun around the sun, our heat source, coursing through each layer in the air, allowing us to enhance our skills in both interpretive dance and adapting to each geological circumstance. We can think thoughts that cannot be explained through algorithmic pathways. We can create more technological devices than there are spices in the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia combined. Yet, we are known less for our advancements and more for the commandments we fail to uphold. The golden rule overruled in educational institutions and environmental solutions. We seem to pollute our mind with the idea that the Constitution is kind to all walks of life. The 3/5 clause, Article 1, Section 2 is a punch to the gut. 2 centuries later, the Ku Klux Klan showed up. We praise the creation of Canada Day, but that downplays the 1,000 plus Native American bodies bruised, abused, and buried under stolen indigenous land. We demand new outfits from numerous clothing brands and forget that forced child labor still remains an issue at hand. We can't sacrifice one problem to work on another advancement. This is not an eye for an eye situation. Let's break it down. Simple mathematical equations, real life applications. Question 1. Does the number of phones we've bought equal the number of Asian people shot or harassed during the coronavirus pandemic? Question 2. Does the number of shoes we buy equal the number of Black lives in prison, subject to a system that is always on a mission to fulfill the expectation of mass incarceration? Question 3. Can world peace truly be enforced by the police? I guarantee none of the answers to any of these questions were yes. The phrase human rights undeniably kicks in our fight or flight. We could listen and comprehend, yet we construct criticism. We could defend Asian advocacy, yes, we deafen activism. We could discover our self-worth, yet we protect authoritarianism. The odds are we won't resolve every issue on this planet. I am aware that I am no scientist. I am just a girl. However, I believe each issue is an error in the scientific theory of evolution. Thank you.
All right, Caroline. Amazing, as always.
Amazing.
Please, please, please give some virtual emojis and virtual love to a youth poet who is incredibly talented and has held us down at our Healing City Summits and just been an amazing, amazing voice. Loved it. Thank you so much for what you do. Donna, take it away, my friend.
All right, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself. Again, please burn the chat up, make it on fire, and continue to hang out with us. We have some more poets that's coming up. We have other sessions. And at this time, oh my goodness, wait a minute, Zeke. I got multi things going on. Where is my list at, guys? Help, help. I'm drowning.
All good. I'm gonna jump in here, Donna. We're a
Thank
team.
you.
So we got our sessions coming up. You can check out the sessions happening between 1:15 and 2 p.m. using the link to the Google Doc in the chat. Our friend Iris is going to put in the link, or if you have the Hoover app, you can also check out the schedule there.
That part, the Hoover. Make sure you guys download the Hoover app.
Gotta have the Hoover app. After the sessions, we'll have brain breaks and more from 1:15 to 2. And then at 3:15, we're going to have an exclusive conversation with Dr. Bessel Vanderkolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, one of the seminal texts in trauma-informed care. So we are now going to transition to our sessions. Love the energy so far. Let's keep it going. And I will see you all very soon.